Let's have some fun today, shall we? Let's rank some guitar headstocks. This video is literally that fun. I want to have a lot of fun today. I'm in a good mood. Today's Spotify Wrapped Day. Everybody's posting their Spotify Wrapped, and I posted my own, and I'm really proud of my numbers, man. You know, we always kind of get wrapped up in our streams and our analytics and our numbers and blah, 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 blah. But the fact that one man, one dude here in the Philadelphia area makes guitar riffs and makes heavier styles of music, and a lot of people, you know, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big of a deal, but a lot of people still listen to it, enjoy it, and that means a lot to me. I think I'm like number one on 16 people's number one artist, which is amazing, man. That means a lot to me. Thank you so much. And I forget the number, but there's a pretty big number for the amount of people that have me in their top 10 and stuff like that. So very thankful, man. I just appreciate you guys. January 10th, new album will be out. 2025 is going to be an amazing year. Can't wait to share more music with you all. Thank you so much. If you guys want to pre-save the album, link is down below in the pinned comment. But for right now, let's talk about headstocks. This is one of the videos I've always wanted to make. Never made it yet, and I'm not the first person to make this video, but I think it's going to be fun. Like I said, here to enjoy my time, and I hope you are as well. Let's start right now. You guys know how these things work, S to D and everywhere in between. I'm not going to waste any of your guys' time. Not going to waste a second more. Let's start right now in no particular order. Let's go with a Solar Guitars normal reverse headstock A tier. I love this headstock a lot. I'm going to keep S tier pretty prestigious in this video for whatever reason. I just kind of feel like it. But I will say Solar Guitars almost belongs in S tier. It has one of, if not the best, reverse headstock out there. All right, up next, let's go with Telecaster D tier. One of the worst shapes, not only for a body, but also a headstock as well. I mean, just look at in comparison to the Solar Guitars headstock up there. Night and day. It looks so silly, man. It looks ridiculous in my opinion. I think it's very uninspiring. It's very round. That's why I've never really gelled with Tellies, just because they look just not for me, we'll say. If you like it, obviously that's cool. But it doesn't look cool, man. It just nothing about it looks cool in my opinion. Probably stays in tune pretty well because of the straight line, but whatever. Up next, let's go with, we got to bang these out, man. Let's go with the Gibson Flying V headstock. This is kind of like the more modern one, not the 70s rounded off one. I'll put it in A tier. I think it's pretty sick, man. A Flying V, it's all for show, not necessarily for practicality. And, you know, the headstock obviously matches that. I dig it, man. Love Flying Vs. I want a white Flying V before I die. It's one of my bucket list guitars. Yeah, dig it. Dig it a lot. Up next, let's go with an Ibanez headstock. This is one of the Pias, and it's from Steve I, but they all kind of look the same. I'm going to put it in C tier. One of my lesser favorite headstocks out there. Similar to the Telly and stuff like that, I've never really gelled with much Ibanez stuff ever. I think they look cool, but I don't know. There's something about it. It's like, for me, I kind of like traditional stuff and traditional styles. It's just kind of how I've always been, more or less. I don't know. It's just, the headstock's just kind of bland for me, and it's okay, but it doesn't really do anything in terms of aesthetics for me. And before I go any further, most of this is going to be aesthetic based. I mean, what else do we have to base it off of? Practicality and performance? I guess, sure. But like the headstock is a visual thing in my opinion, because headstocks all kind of do the same thing in my opinion. Up next, let's go with a Gibson regular old standard headstock. I think B is where this belongs. It probably, like all the Gibson 3 on each side headstocks, in my opinion, are the best brand to do the 3 on each side headstock. I think they do it the best. But you'll notice here, I'm adding a little bit of flair and a little bit of extra stuff to the headstocks. You guys will see here in a second, because it might be a little confusing when you're looking at the tier list for right now. But anyway, 3 on each side. Classic legendary design. I have a lot of Les Pauls on this channel. I've had a lot in my life. I love Les Pauls and Gibson and all that stuff. And 3 on each side from Gibson with the open book, I think does it the best. Dean Shrimp Fork. One of the lesser known headstocks out there in my opinion. D tier. I think Dean has one of the cooler normal looking headstocks, which we'll get to, the V. But the Shrimp Fork, it's so sad. It's so not cool. And I don't know why or who or I don't know who, what, when, or why this happened back in the day, but it did. I guess they were trying something, and you know, maybe somebody out there likes it, but I think just that little headstock with the little point, it just doesn't do it for me at all. Let's go normal Jackson headstock. Let's go A tier. I love this headstock a lot. I think Jacksons have some of the best aesthetic guitars out there, and their headstocks certainly add to that. It's very iconic, very recognizable. Headstocks are headstocks. They all kind of look the same with a few exceptions, and I think Jackson is one of those few exceptions. That point at the end, I think it looks sick. Adds to the metal, hard rock, weaponry-esque style of guitar. I dig it. Epiphone Tombstone D tier. Really do not like this headstock at all. They've since updated the headstock several times since I've been on YouTube, and they'll be on this list here. But the Tombstone one of the worst, and it was a clear eyesore, I would call it, when you would look at an Epiphone and you could tell it was an Epiphone by the headstock. It just didn't look right in my opinion. BC Rich Warlock. Now I have a soft spot for this, as this was my first guitar ever, this literal headstock. This isn't my guitar, but I had one just like this. I'll put it in C tier. It's very, very in your face and a bit much, sure. I totally understand that. And if it's not for you, that's totally fine. But at least it's different, and at least it's recognizable and identifiable. And if you're into Slayer or I don't know, the first Slipknot album in the year 2000, this is your bread and butter. Not my style, very weaponry-esque, very, in your face or whatever, but at least it's identifiable, right? So for that, I'll put it in C tier. 70s Jumbo Stratocaster headstock from Fender, S tier. I think this is my all-time favorite headstock, period. No matter what, this is my favorite. I love the Strat headstock. I love Strats. That's the first guitar I ever saw when I was 10 or 11, when I was able to tangibly understand what a guitar was and how it's played and what it can do. 9, 10, or 11. Anyway, once I realized that the 70s headstock was a thing, and you saw Hendrix with the big headstock, it was game over. The Jim Root Strat has the big headstock. Anything with the 70s style just crushes for me. S tier, favorite headstock of all time. I think so. PRS headstock. I don't know. It kind of looks like the shrimp fork, and the 3 on each side doesn't really do it well for me, in my opinion. I'll put it in C tier. Never really been that big of a fan of PRS guitars just yet. I'm always down to learn and change my mind with all that. But the headstock just never really did it for me. Never really got the appeal of PRS guitars just yet. But like I said, always down to learn. EVH headstock. Kind of like the Ernie Ball and then the PV. It's got that horn, the open cutout. I'll put it in B tier because it is unique, and I have a soft spot for Eddie and for Van Halen, and it is a 3 on each side, and I've kind of said if it goes in the middle, I don't really like it, but I'm incredibly biased. I love Van Halen. I love Van Halen products. The headstock's not bad. I would be comfortable putting it in C tier, but for right now, just going off the cuff, I'm going to put it in B tier. Moving right along, we go with the Kramer/EVH hockey stick headstock. This includes Explorers and ESPs. I'll put it in B tier. It's cool. It's kind of quirky and, very 80s and in your face. But at least it's unique, and at least it's different, and it's not a, cookie cutter or a safe headstock. It's pretty flamboyant, and it's making a statement. And for that, I think it's kind of cool. It belongs in B. Up next, we have the latest Epiphone headstock that is just like Gibson. Honestly, everybody, this might be a hot take. I'm going to put it in D tier. I don't like this. I liked when they changed it in around 2020 or 2021, give or take. But now here in 2023, 2024, when they changed it, ever since the greeny phenomenon came on, I just don't really like it, man. It's kind of confusing to me and puzzling to the consumer. Funny story, I was in Hollywood looking at guitars at Guitar Center, and I saw an Adam Jones Silverburst with the new headstock, and I thought it was a Gibson until I got up close to it and I saw it said Epiphone. It's it's gone too far. It looks the part, but it looks the part too well, in my opinion, which may not make any sense, but I'm just being honest. Don't really like this. I think they went too far with trying to make it look like Gibsons, and it is what it is. Just not really a fan of that. ESP Eclipse 3 on each side headstock with a kind of swoop. I'll put it in C tier. Not really a fan of this one. It kind of always reminded me of Gumby, the cartoon character. Not really a fan of this one at all. It's okay. Luckily, ESP guitars are sick, and they always look cool, so the headstock is, passable. I wish it was a little bit more symmetrical, or it didn't just do the big swoop at the... It looks like, I don't know, Johnny Bravo or something. It looks like, somebody's hairdo or something like that. I don't know. It just always bothered me a little bit. Up next, Ernie Ball Music Man headstock. Put it in A tier. Very efficient headstock. They're small and they're compact. If you've ever played a Music Man, they're all about efficiency, and it feels like they have everything in their wheelhouse, like right here in this little thing. And I would kind of say that about like the EVH headstock. It's kind of the same thing. And people will probably say that about the PRS as well. But sticking on topic here, the Ernie Ball Music Man headstock, it just works. It's like I said, just very compact. It's out of the way. And the craftsmanship and the quality of Ernie Ball Music Man guitars is amazing. So the Music Man headstock, I think it looks cool. And I'm a huge sucker for the early 90s EVH Ernie Balls, and I think that's why I have it up in A tier. It's a soft spot for me. Let's go with the Cerberus headstock. The headstock that's on my first rendition of my signature guitar. Maybe there'll be another one in the later half of 2025. I don't know. But for right now, let's stick with this one. I'm going to put it in B tier. It's, obviously pretty angular, rather, hard rock metal focused, I would say. But I do love that big carve out. Where's my signature guitar? Where is that thing? This right here. I love this. I love this cutout. I think it looks sick. It's classy. It's unique-ish to me. When I say ish, meaning I'm sure there's another headstock that looks similar to this, but I dig it, man. I love it a lot. Let's go reverse Jackson headstock, S tier. Similar to the normal Jackson headstock, when you take that headstock and you flip it, oh my God, any Jackson with the reverse headstock, dude, so sick, man. Like, unbelievable. I love it so much, dude. Up next, let's go with the Strandberg headstock. But wait, there's no headstock. I'll put it in D tier. I tried back in the day to get behind the headless guitar kick, no headstock, but it's just not for me, man. I think it's missing. They're so practical and it makes sense. I get it. I hear you. Anybody who loves them, trust me, dude, I get it and I hear you. And yeah, it makes sense. It feels amazing, but there's just something missing, man. There's just something about it, the way it looks, the way it feels when you're like moving through the air. I don't know. It just feels incomplete. And I think every guitar needs a headstock, in my opinion, of course. Let's go with this Gibson. I'm gonna call it like the modern headstock. It's silly. It's silly. It's either C or D. It's C tier. It's cool and it's goofy enough to be kind of cool. It's wild. It's not really my thing, but it's so quirky that it kind of is starting to become cool again, right? I don't know. It's a rare one. You don't really see it much for probably obvious reasons. It is what it is. It's kind of quirky and kind of goofy, right? All right, let's start padding up top here. Let's go Gibson Les Paul Custom headstock, S tier. Now, I will say this. I will kind of correct myself. I said the 70s jumbo headstock from Fender is my favorite of all time. If I can incorporate graphics or more aesthetic other than the shape and the look, if I can incorporate the Gibson headstock with the split diamond, that is my favorite. They got that design right. There's something about that design. Who knows what it even really is or was. Maybe it has some meaning. I never, understood it or took the time to look it up. But that on any custom guitar from Gibson, but especially like a Les Paul custom or a SG custom, dude, that's so sick. So sick. I think that is the best aesthetic of all time, in my opinion. A Les Paul custom, like a Silver Burst or a Black Beauty or whatever, dude. Natural finish. I mean, I'm fortunate enough to have two back there in the rack, man. I've got the Silver Burst and the natural one. Best headstock of all time. The Dean Split headstock. Let's put it in... I'm going to put it in A tier. I actually really like this headstock. And I was surprised to find out that people don't like this headstock that much. It's a big controversy on the internet. That's one of my favorite things about Dean, is how identifiable it is, and you could see the logo. When I first started to really research them and delve into them a little bit, I was always gravitating towards those types of guitars. I mean, I've got the Dean Cadillac that's in storage. I've got, I've had a 7-string with it back in the day with the V. I think it's the best part about Dean guitars is that iconic headstock. And to find out that people don't really like it, I'm surprised by that, but it is what it is, 2 to go. Let's go with the Epiphone, now old headstock. I'm going to put it in A tier. When they did this with Epiphone, I was so stoked, man. And I felt like they should have left it here, in my opinion. It looks like Gibson, but it's its own thing. And I think that shape right there is really cool. And it's a way to separate the brand. And it's a way to make Epiphone its own thing. Now that they've got the Gibson headstock on Epiphones, it feels like it's trying to go back to what it was trying to avoid, which is copying a Gibson. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like Epiphone had a brief stint there in like 2021 when I was really into them, and like I had like 3 or 4 on the channel, and I was buying them and I was stoked on them, where they were their own thing, and they were like throwing a whole bunch of money and specs and features and appointments at them, and they had their own headstock, and that was cool to me. Now they're just seem like they're just going back to trying to be a Gibson again. So I don't know, man. I like that headstock. Maybe a hot take. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think about that. But that's where I'm at with that. And last but not least, let's just go with a plain old like 50s or 60s, just a normal Strat headstock. I'm going to put it in S tier. Said it in this video once, but I'll say it again. A Stratocaster was the first guitar that I ever found and was infatuated with. Like when I was like a kid, when I was a boy, watching the Jimi Hendrix movie on my father's floor, playing with my NASCAR cars on the carpet. He would put that on and I would see it and I would watch it and I would understand what a Strat was. Ever since then, that headstock, that aesthetic is like what I think a guitar should be. I'm kind of contradicting myself in this video. I've said it back and forth. Strats and Les Pauls. I think a Strat is like the epitome of a guitar, but I think like a custom Les Paul looks better than a regular Strat, but the jumbo headstock is like more common and more of a standard and not so much of a premium. Yada, yada, yada. I'm going back and forth here. But wrapping up this point and essentially wrapping up the tier list, a Strat headstock I think is amazing. It's what a guitar is to me. So that's my list, everybody. There's my tier list. What do you guys think of my thoughts and opinions? This is all in good fun, everybody. We're talking about headstocks. Ain't too serious. Love to hear from you guys down below in the comment section. Okay, everybody? With that being said, thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. I appreciate you guys, man. It feels good to be home, making content again. I'm not on tour. I'm home. I'm doing it again. I'm being a YouTuber, and it feels good. I've got the itch again to make content. So with that being said, everybody, see you guys very, very soon. Support me in any and every which way. Love you guys. All right, I'm out of here. Later.